Hey folks, you got Captain Steve Lawver here. For anyone who's on either the AFWERX or Cyber COE or RapidX team who's going to have a speaking role, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand in the participants window, and I'll upgrade you to a panelist. But again, we're going to get here started in just a couple minutes. Hey folks, you got Steve here. So Kyle, right, I updated you to panelist. If you would mind, just let me know if you can hear me okay, and then trying to speak as well.
I can hear you loud and clear. How am I?
You're great, man. Hey, so are you up for reading out the questions today once we get to that section?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, awesome. Well, I see Jessica Steinhoff, welcome. So again, for anyone who's going to have a speaking role today, just let me know and raise your hand within the participants window, and I'll upgrade you to a panelist so you can speak. We're going to give it one more minute before we get started. And to clarify there, that's anyone that's on either the AFWERX team, Cyber Center of Excellence, or RapidX, who's among the folks that are helping to implement this Air Force Ventures COVID-19 response. Okay, All right, so we were up to 291 and climbing. I think we're at a good starting point here. We've got Kyle Wright and Jess Steinhoff. Thanks so much for joining from our end. Awesome. Thank you, everyone who's joining today for the first time or who is joining us again after being with us on Tuesday. The bottom line over the last couple of days is participation has continued to grow. And as I said the first time, we've just been overwhelmed in a very positive way at the outpouring of support, whether it's individuals or small businesses or large businesses or universities and nonprofits, you name it, who have gone through the RFI, which is the portal we're going to discuss here today, to propose solutions that they can use to help towards this fight to defeat and mitigate the effects of COVID-19. So just want to say thank you to everyone who's here now giving us your time and everyone who's taken the time to respond to any of the different requests for information and solicitations we have out there to start getting after it. So without further ado, I'm going to go through some admin rules of engagement here. First off, this call is being recorded, and I'm going to start that right now. We are recording. So if you do have something to say, or if you ask a question in the chat, it will be read aloud and it will be recorded. So refrain from mentioning individuals' names or anything you don't want to get out there in the public, because we will be sharing this. When you're asking questions, use the Q&A function in Zoom. Don't use chat, because we're going to be going through Q&A to answer them, and otherwise we won't get to your question. This is scheduled for 1 hour. So it was 2 hours last time. That was awesome. But we are posting the video of the last call, and nothing substantive has changed about the things we said last time. So those things will remain true. We're going to post that video, and I'm going to go a little bit more quickly through the high level stuff before we get to the actual Q&A portion of this. So 1 hour this time versus 2. If we finish early, that's fine. I anticipate that we'll go through the whole time based on the last call on Tuesday. Some quick introductions, though, for folks we have this time. So anyone else on the line from Air Force Ventures? And you can just raise your hand as a participant if so. Okay, so on my end, I'm Captain Steve Lawver, part of Air Force Ventures and AFWERX. Now, we've got someone else from AFWERX as well. Kyle, you want to do a quick intro?
Hello, everybody. My name is Kyle, and I'll be reading the questions today for the AFWERX team.
Awesome. Thanks, man. All right, moving over to Cyber Center of Excellence. Do we have anyone from Cyber COE? So John McCanny or Chris Crook or any of those folks? John, I've got you. I'm promoting you to panelist. And go ahead and try to talk if you can, just to make sure it's working.
Got me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Cool.
Awesome. John's awesome. He was here last time too. So anything in depth on SBIR, he'll be able to answer, certainly if I can't. And then lastly from AFWERX PK and then the RapidX, Jessica Steinhoff.
Hey guys, Major Jessica Steinhoff. I am Deputy Director of RapidX, or the contracting team that supports AFWERX and AFVentures.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. And we also had Joey Aurora just jumped on. You mind doing a quick intro, Joey?
Hey, it's Captain Joey Aurora here with AFWERX and AFVentures, here to help out and get all questions answered.
Awesome. Thank you, team. If other people jump on, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll promote you to panelists as well. Okay, so for those who joined on Tuesday, we kept alluding to there might be an announcement about another contract vehicle that is ready for announcement. I think we're not quite there yet. Jessica, confirm, is that the case or is that not the case?
So it's looking like, if not Friday night, it'll be ready Saturday. It's
Okay.
going to be a commercial solutions opening. We'll get ready to talk about that here, I think, as you go through the agenda here. But yep.
Yeah, no, so last time I was super cagey because I didn't want to give away too many details. But once we get to that point, Jessica, Major Steinhoff will be able to speak to that some, which will be great. But other than that, no major changes. So if you saw the last one, and we'll start with Major Steinhoff's piece, just for those who are only joining for that. Then you can drop off unless you want to stay for the Q&A. One other thing that I do want to announce, though, is that up to this point we've been foot stomping that this is a joint effort, but really it's been largely Air Force led. Well, now what is happening is this is going to be growing even bigger to become a DoD concerted effort. So all of the links will stay the same that we talk about. It won't change that, but just realize that your pool of potential customers and those who are feeding our focus areas, that has grown to the DoD now, which is just phenomenal. You know, I'll be honest, I think a lot of that had to do with the overwhelming support that you all gave when applying through some of the front doors that we created. So thank you so much for the support there. This is growing significantly beyond just the Air Force to Department of Defense, which is great. Then again, it didn't happen last time, but my 3-year-old may be coming downstairs to say hi. If that happens, I apologize. Okay, so first off, where can you find this information? So if you go to afwerx.af.mil, which is just the AFWERX website, at the top, you'll notice not where that circle is, but just above it, there's yellow text that says COVID-19 response effort. That is where we're keeping all information on the request for information, the solicitation vehicle that Major Steinhoff is going to talk about, the direct to phase 2 open SBIR, and anything else about the Air Force and now the DoD COVID-19 response can be found at that link, even though we're transitioning to DoD-wide. Once you click that link, this is just showing you what that landing page is. And there's the URL at the bottom. If you want to bookmark that to get there quicker, you can. And if you scroll down on that page, you'll notice a couple of links here. I'm gonna go over them fairly quickly and then again pass it off to Major Steinhoff to discuss the open CSO that she mentioned. But one of the first things you'll see is 2 links to join the fight. One of them is on the government side. So if you are a member of government and you would like to offer your time or expertise in some way towards this fight, fill out that left link there, or click that link. It's going to take you to a very easy form. It takes less than 5 minutes to fill out. And if you are non-government, so again, any type of industry or nonprofit or university or individual that is outside the government, click that bottom right link, and that's going to take you again to a fairly simple form. That is our what we call a request for industry information, or RFI. It is not we're not looking for proposals. It is not a competition. Literally all that is doing is putting your name, your organization, and what you think you can contribute to the fight, and a couple other details around that, to our team, who is assembled on the back end. It's the brain, the switchboard behind all of this, to connect your responses to the potential customers and those in need inside and outside of the Air Force. So, and especially now that we've brought in the DoD as well. So that really is the front door as the first easy step to say, I've got something that might help, even though we don't know exactly how we're going to put you on contract or work with you yet. That just gets you in the door and starts the right conversations. I do want to say here that we have what are called focus areas. So these are things that, you know, our team, I mentioned that back-end team called the OPT, Operational Planning Team, for COVID-19, was going through all of these problem areas, these things that we know are affecting us now as a result of COVID-19, to identify those things that need our support the most right now. So when you go and fill out this form, you're going to notice an option to select one of these 6, or frankly 7, which is other. But those first 6 are just things that we've noticed are very important to us right now and have a lot of need throughout the DoD. I won't go through each one of those, but if you solve one of these problems, then absolutely we do want to hear from you. And there's also that other category, which is you got something that you think can contribute to the fight. We just don't know it yet. We still want you to tell us. Okay. Want to see. All right. So I'm just going to finish out this RFI piece, and then Major Steinhoff, I'll pass it to you. Again, the team that's on the back end who's helping to go through and pouring through this list of respondents is going to help to match those responses to the potential users and customers throughout the DoD. And after you've completed the RFI, that form, a member of that team will reach out to you directly. So no need to keep following up with, hey, did you get my response? What are the next steps? They will reach out to you, regardless of whether they're interested or not. We'll let you know a yes, no, or more information needed as well. All right, Major Steinhoff, would you mind discussing, to the extent that you can, at least the open CSO?
Yes, sir. Okay, so what we're going to do is, when it's live, so just stay tuned on the sites that Steve mentioned. We're going to post the commercial solutions opening, and the link will be live there at our front door, and you'll just respond there. And what the commercial solutions opening is it's just the solicitation for us to start engaging in those 7 focus areas. And Steve, when I turn the mic back over to you, if you could just bring those up on the Google, on the form, so we can kind of go over what those are one more time, just for the team that's on the line.
Sure.
Because I think that was really great last time, where we kind of just high level what our focus areas are. But the solicitation that we're going to post is actually where he said, We had request for information was our first pass at, hey, who's willing to help and help us fight here against COVID-19. And then now we're going to enter into, once this goes live, we're going to enter into the solicitation phase where we're going to say, in these 7 focus areas, opening that door to start the process for potential contract. So we're going to set up what's called areas of interest then, and there will be a process that's laid out in the commercial solutions opening that'll have more information on how to engage there. So that's all we have at this point, because more to follow. And just like when we talk about like the solicitation, you need to read the solicitation for like direct to phase 2, the D2P2, all the details will be listed there in the CSO. So that's really all I can announce here, because like I said, all the details will be in the actual CSO posting. But we are going to make it real easy for you guys and have it on our front door here on the AFWERX COVID-19 page, or what Steve's bringing up is the focus areas, so you guys can see exactly what we are going to have those areas of interest speak to make it real simple. And there is that other category, which we can go over if you feel as though your solution doesn't fit into the shiny box that we've laid out here, how to help us there. So Steve, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And just could you confirm, are the areas of interest going to line up either exactly with the focus areas on the RFI, or will there'll be some variance there?
At first, they're going to line up with the focus areas. And then as we learn more as to what the needs are, we will probably flex. So
Okay.
we're going to be extremely flexible, like we always are in AFWERX and AFWERX, with the needs of what's happening in the field and what's happening with the pandemic. So I would say our first pass is going to be the areas of interest will line up with these 7 focus areas, but just we're going to continue these AMAs. So we'll be as open with the team here as we can, and we're just happy to be in conversation like this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before I kind of go over the actual questions in the RFI, one last question for you. Is this a good summation that the RFI that request for information is literally just, it's not a competition of any sort. It's saying, bring your information to us and we'll do with it what we can. But the open CSO will be a solicitation for which we are expecting proposals, and they can result in awards of contracts or other agreements. Is that the case?
Yes, sir. Yep. So that's what the solicitation is. It'll say in the commercial solutions opening, the government will reserve the right to award to all, some, or none at some point. And it'll be based on technical merit and budget, and it'll all be laid out in the language. And your solutions will not be rated against each other either. So it's just basically, we will look at what is the government's, what is the nation's need, and we'll look at your solution, and then we'll look at the budget that we have, and then we'll go forth and we'll make the determination from there. But we're not going to rate you against each other like in a typical government source selection. So no need to worry about that.
Okay. Yeah. Super helpful. Thanks for that clarification. Break. I'm going to go through the RFI now. Again, that first thing we discussed, just to show how easy the process is for submitting information there. We ask for your email address, a good POC, the name of the organization. We ask you to characterize what type of organization it is. And then we have, in one sentence, how can you help? And then if you want to provide more info, in one paragraph, how can you help? So still pretty concise. You see each of those focus areas we just discussed is there. I'm going to go ahead and say that over time, as the open CSO evolves and they evolve their list of areas of interest, we will likely do the same and try to remain in lockstep with them on the focus areas too. So this can evolve. This is what we have now. There's optional questions, which just really go into helping to route your solution further. This is in no way limiting the breadth or scope of where it might get to. It just helps us get there a little bit faster. You don't have to select one of these. This is optional. time frame for impact, right? So all the way from right now, we're ramping up to what does the new normal look like down the road? And everywhere in between, we have 4 options to select from there. We ask you for up to 3 keywords, which is helpful for routing. There's questions about SBIR, which are going to only apply to a small select few. Again, that has no impact or bearing on whether or not you get to someone within the DoD. It's just helping us route to the right place. Your website, and then for attachments, we just ask you to reply all. Once you submit this form, you're going to get an RFI number. And that number then, in any future correspondence, we'll want you to reply back to everybody, including covid@afworks.af.mil. Again, all these instructions are in the form itself with any attachments you would like to provide. So it's that simple. That's all that's involved with the RFI. Again, I mentioned I'm going to move fairly quick through this. So let me share the presentation again.
Hey, and Steve, and I think once we get the logistics of the CSO and the AOI submission process, we believe it'll be relatively in lockstep with the submission that you just laid out.
Great. No, that's really helpful. All right, so we discussed the RFI. That is something you can do right now. We discussed the open CSO, which is actually, contract vehicle solicitation, rather, that can result in awards. And that can happen in the very near future, right? So it's not out yet, but we're expecting Friday, Saturday. And then we've got a more medium-term solution that does have funding that's tied to it. So I just want to discuss that very quickly before jumping into questions. And that is Small Business Innovative Research, SBIR. There is a current Air Force direct to phase 2 solicitation that is open, called X20.R as in Romeo. And the name of the topic is AF20.R-DCS01. And I'm going to go into where you can find this, what it entails, but that is another thing that happens to have a COVID-19 focus area associated with it. I do want to say that this direct to phase 2 SBIR is not limited to COVID in any way. It is completely open, so that if you have any dual use solution that might be useful to the Air Force writ large for any topic, that is a front door for you in that case, but we do just happen to have a focus area for COVID on there as well. So it is worth discussing here. How you get to this information. So I have a link at the top there for the SBIR portal. You'll see DSIP is what it's often called, DSIP. One of the fastest ways to get there is just to go in, and you can search for SBIR portal, and it's the first hit. In the top right, you'll notice a button that says topics. And if you scroll down, once you go to that next page, there's one for the Air Force, and you can see the files that are there to download. These are the instructions that talk about what your proposal is going to need to include for you to be considered. All of the relevant dates are there on the left as well. The other way to get there is there's something called sam.gov or beta.sam.gov. All contract opportunities, not just SBIR, are posted there. So if you go to that website and you go into the search window, change it to contract opportunities for the search type, and then just type in X20.R SBIR or SBIR. It'll be the only response there. I'm showing you there what it looks like, and again, that will be the only response. And that will provide you with the instructions for SBIR as well as any other relevant attachments. Okay, some quick notes on this. It is up to a $1 million funding opportunity. And again, it's not just for COVID-19 solutions. I can't foot stomp that enough. Your organization must be a U.S. owned and controlled small business concern, so one that has less than 500 employees, including all affiliates. And the full details on how are you eligible as an organization are in that link below. The solicitation closes on April 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so a little bit under a month now until that closes. There is a COVID-19 focus area, so you'll notice that one of those attachments posted both to the DSIP site and to beta.sam.gov is the list of focus areas. You'll notice that those mirror the same ones that we listed on our RFI and that will be, at least in the beginning, on the open CSO. Now, here's one of the keys, is because this is a open SBIR for any solution, we do have a requirement as part of that process to be able to show that you have an actual end user and customer somewhere within the Air Force. We demonstrate that through what we call the customer memorandum. This is a document that is from your Air Force customer, is signed and says, I have a potential need for the solution. If this phase 2 effort, which is up to $1 million, is funded, this is exactly what we'll do together. These are the deliverables that the company will provide to us. We ask for that to ensure that we are not funding a solution that nobody in the Air Force wants. So going back to where does this play into COVID-19? On this call now, what I'm saying is, if you have a solution that you think addresses one of those focus areas, please send an email to covid@afwerx.af.mil and make sure you include in the subject line cyber20.r, again, 20.romeo, dash the name of your firm. What is going to happen is there's logic in our email that is going to make sure that email gets to our backend team, the same team that's doing the RFI routing to try to get your company or your organization to the potential need in the Air Force. It is going to try to route you to those organizations in the Air Force such that it can result in that customer memorandum for SBIR. So again, that might be a little convoluted. Very quickly, again, I'll just say, if you want to apply for SBIR, and if you have a solution that is relevant to COVID-19, please send an email to covid@afwerx.af.mil and have cyber20.r dash your company name in the subject line. So I'm sure there'll be questions on that. There were quite a bit last time. We'll make sure to get to those. Okay, that was discussing this next call.
Quick question for you. So a lot of the questions we have are if the MOUs can be from any DoD customer, or can they only be from the Air Force, or could they be from agencies outside of, excuse me, outside of the DoD?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that was one thing that we discussed last time and said we would follow up on. So thanks for reminding me on that. So for the SBIR, at this point, there needs to be at least one Air Force stakeholder who's providing a customer memorandum. So there can be multiple. You can have NHS, or you can have Army, or you can have DARPA, anyone else. But there needs to be at least one from the Air Force to show that there is some Air Force link involved as well. So good question. Unfortunately, that is the case for SBIR at the moment. If you do have customers that you think are not Air Force, or you don't have an Air Force customer, but you would like to work with the DoD in some way, of course, the RFI still applies to you. And of course, the Open CSO will apply as well, because again, this effort is becoming bigger than Air Force. It is DoD wide. It's just for CIBR in particular, we're limited to the Air Force customers.
I also have a couple of other questions that would help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a limit on the number of phase twos folks can have concurrently?
There's not.
Awesome. And then is there a limit on the amount of direct to phase 2 awards that folks can have at the same time? So could they apply for multiple direct to phase 2 solicitations this round?
Yeah, they can.
Awesome.
And one thing I'll want to point everyone to as well is those solicitation instructions. All of these questions are embedded in there somewhere, right? And so one of the things I would recommend too is make sure to read the solicitation end to end. We try to make it not too long, right? And as readable as possible. Control F for certain things if you're trying to search for a specific text or question. And everything that I say here, John McCanney, feel free to jump on and say that I'm wrong if that's the case. But realize that the source document and the source of all of the rules around applying for this program are the solicitation itself.
And then Steve, last question from me, and then I'll hand it over to Kyle to start reading our open questions.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks were asking if there's a limit on the amount of CIBR money for a company, or how that works. I believe that is $1 million per award. So if you had 2 different submissions for the direct to phase 2, you could theoretically get $2 million for your submissions. One company can submit multiple direct to phase 2s under 20.R, and they could get more than $1 million of that CIBR money, but it's max $1 million per effort in this case.
Yeah, that's spot on, Joey. One thing, this is a good chance for us to bring this up as we did last time, is it is okay to apply multiple times to the same topic, just making sure that you are not proposing essentially equivalent work, right? So if you propose the same thing twice, you can't be paid for that same thing twice. And so a couple of nuances here. One, if you are going to apply multiple times to the same topic, make sure that they are for different solutions. So that's part one. Break. You can also apply the exact same proposal or the same information and same solution to multiple different calls for proposals or multiple different solicitations across the Air Force. But the key is when you apply, you must identify that is happening. So there are points during the application process where we will ask you specifically, are you applying to any other solicitations for essentially equivalent work? And you have to say yes. You have to tell us which ones. If you don't say yes and tell us, and that is grounds for removal or not being considered for this solicitation in particular. So absolutely, you can apply to multiple, just tell us that you're doing it. And then the last piece is you cannot be awarded multiple times for the same work, right? And so if it came to be that you applied to, let's say, the Open CSO and to SBIR direct to phase 2, and maybe another topic for some other service, that's fine. But if you were selected for all three, you could only pick one if it was for essentially equivalent work. And the definition of essentially equivalent work is actually in the instructions in the definition section. John, did I miss anything there?
Sounding good on my end.
Yes.
Awesome job, Steve and John.
Awesome.
The other thing I would like to highlight is that the directive phase 2 is an open topic directive phase 2. So just reiterating that it is open for you to apply on any topic that you want to submit for this SBIR submission process. A small business is usually defined as a US-based company with less than 500 employees. There's an official definition in the solicitation. And the CSO will be different. It is focused around the COVID-19 response, around some of those 7 areas that we went over a little bit earlier. And more details on that will be posted on Friday or Saturday.
Perfect. Okay, Joey, thank you so much. All right, before we go into the rest of the Q&A, I know that Major Steinhoff is going to have to drop off. Anything that you would like to add before you do? Okay. All right, so Kyle, right over to you. If you wouldn't mind to start going through the questions, and then we'll knock them out.
Yes, I believe you already touched on this one, but just in case we got some new attendees, can anyone sign an MOU, hospitals, Army, Navy, etc.? And if so, will the Air Force fund the phase 2 despite the MOU not being signed by the Air Force?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, we touched on this one. There does need to be at least an Air Force customer to be able to vouch for that. Now, one thing that I would consider doing is if you go through the RFI, right now, obviously non-SBIR, you apply for the RFI, or rather you submit your information to that, you're going to be that will result in conversations between you and this COVID-19 operational planning team of some sort. One thing that you could do is say, hey, look, I've got a customer who is NHS, for example, or some organization that is not the Air Force, and you can talk to that OPT team and say, is there anyone else in the Air Force that might benefit from this? Or we might be able to work together on this as well. So we are sensitive to that. You might be able to find a customer who's willing to say, yeah, this affects the Air Force too, even though there's also that NHS or you name it type of customer. But the answer is yes, you need to have at least an Air Force customer for that customer memorandum.
For the COVID focus area, is there a targeted period of performance for this focused effort?
The COVID focus area target. Yeah, really good question. So it kind of depends. So regarding, I'm going to go through each of these different vehicles, right? The RFI, it's not a proposal, so there's no time limit or amount of time involved. We do give you those 4 options in terms of when can your solution have an impact. For the open CSO, more details coming. That will be posted Friday or Saturday. I can't speak to that now. But for SBIR, which I think it may have been targeted at, for that one, it is up to 27 months period of performance, and that's including your reporting period at the end there. So 27 months total. Now, in terms of what exactly we're looking for, it really depends, and that's going to be teased out during your conversations with COVID at AFWERX at AF.mil, or whoever contacts you after reaching out to them.
Is having a customer MOU for AF20R-DCOS1 essential? If so, what about the COVID part?
Yep, so it is required for both of those. The same instructions and the same rules will apply for COVID-19 related submissions as will apply to non-COVID-19 related submissions.
Will clients that initially proposed for 20.1 D2P2 have to get new MOU LOS signatures with updated dates, or can they use the originals for February?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So in terms of, I think the answer is almost certainly going to be yes, only because enough time has passed now that the timelines that were associated with that original customer memorandum have likely slid to the right. And so we need to still attest to the fact that that customer is actually still interested in your solution. So I'd say in the vast majority, if not all cases, yes, you will need one. One thing that we would consider is if it took a very long time to route through the right chain to get that approval, if you can get your technical POC identified in that customer memorandum, to write an addendum and sign that to say everything still applies that was in this original customer memorandum, that would be acceptable too. But I think in most cases, it will just need to be signed again.
On Tuesday, you recommended attending this session because of new opportunities that were not ready to be disclosed at the time. Are these elements a part of today's presentation?
Yeah, I anticipate this probably came before we talked about the Open CSO, but that is the one. So even though we didn't go into the details of that yet, what Major Steinhoff was discussing is really that next step. And that to me is for, RFI is for just show us what you've got. The Open CSO is for let's show us what you've got. And also there's funding tied to that and the opportunity for awards to occur in the very near future. And then we've got SBIR, which is more medium term type of awards for small businesses. So yes, the Open CSO was that item. It is expected, it sounds like, to be released Friday or Saturday. We're going to post that information on the afworks.af.mil/coronavirus website.
Hey, Kyle, could you please read from the top down so I can type the answers to the questions as you're reading them?
I can do that. Will you be accepting capability statements from SAM registered janitorial companies in all cities to help with the cleaning of bases?
So this would be one of those things where absolutely the RFI we are not restricting in any way. And I would just encourage you, as you're going through and providing that sentence or that paragraph or that focus, which of those 6 focus areas you apply to, just do your best to capture which one is in that. So, and again, we always have that other category too. So if it's something that we don't know that we need, just tell us. Right? But we're open to anyone and everyone for the RFI.
Hey, Steve, I just wanted to clarify one thing from purposes of that question. Mm-hmm. If it was directed at the RFI or if it was directed at the D2P2 solicitation, I think we should just point out that services like that would not be appropriate under the D2P2. So the SBIR solicitation is soliciting research and research development ideas only. So something like janitorial services wouldn't apply. Now, again, in the context of the RFI and potentially that Open CSO, that's a totally different story. So just, we always caution people, read that solicitation. You have to be very careful what that solicitation is actually asking for.
Awesome. Spot on. Thanks for chiming in. That is absolutely correct. Cool.
For topic AFWERX20.R, can the memorandum and possible matching funds be from other DoD or government?
So again, the answer to that is yes, as long as there's at least one from the Air Force. And the one piece we didn't quite talk about was any matching funding. So there's no issue with matching funding coming from another service or another agency, as long as, again, there's at least one Air Force signatory who's providing a customer memorandum, and if all parties are okay with the work that's being proposed. So the Air Force customer would need to be okay with whatever that money coming in from the other agency or other service is being used towards the effort.
What's the technology level readiness you are considering for this effort?
So any and all. So for RFI, again, completely open. For SBIR, there's nothing that says it has to be a certain TRL level. So for everyone else who doesn't know that, just essentially the maturity of the technology. We are targeting any and all, and we don't limit ourselves to which TRL.
Is the new D2P2 opportunity part of the COVID-19 response, or is it limited to the COVID-19 response?
That's a good question. So it's just part of, and I want to clarify too. So part of on the Air Force side, we've got the RFI, we've got the Open CSO, we will have, and we've got the direct to phase 2. Now, again, what I foot-stomped early on was that the direct to phase 2 is open to any applicants who have a dual use solution that might be relevant to the Air Force beyond just COVID. And then COVID-19 is just one focus area within that broader Open CSO. That broader direct to phase 2.
All right, this one is about the RFI form. We submitted our solution and information shortly after the form came out and received an RFI number. I noticed the form has been updated since then with an additional questions that might help with the routing. Should we resubmit a new form or just provide additional information in an emailed response that references our previously assigned RFI number?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wouldn't resubmit for this one case only because the question that was added isn't going to affect whether or not your company gets seen by our OPT or not. And the odds are that team is already reviewing your first submission, so it could create confusion by having another one for the same thing. So I don't think for that reason you would need to resubmit.
Are multiple submissions allowed per vendor to address different areas of the SBIR?
Yeah. And so again, as discussed, you can apply multiple times. In fact, you can even win multiple times as long as it is for things that are not essentially equivalent work. So you're not proposing for essentially the same thing. Yes, you can.
Steve, I'm going to jump in real quick. Well, a lot of questions are coming in about matching funding for SBIR. Mm-hmm. There are no matching funding requirements for this round, and there's no matching funding for venture or government folks at this time.
So, and I want to clarify that too, because you're right in terms of the amount of SBIR funding that you can receive. So Joey is talking in reference to SBIR Direct to Phase 2. Matching funding is not required. So the ceiling for everybody is $1 million of SBIR funding. So regardless of whether or not you have matching or not, it's $1 million flat is the max that you can receive. That said, we still do have the opportunity for matching. Really what that means is, one, we look at any matching funding, whether from private sources, so private investment, or other government sources, as a sign of your commercialization potential, which is one of the things that we look at when assessing your company and your proposal, right? And so if you do have the presence of outside matching funding or non-SBIR government matching funding, that looks good and it gives you an even better shot of being selected. So that's part one. Part two is if you do have a government customer that wants to provide funding and says, hey, I've got money for this, rather than just doing our own contract right now, I would rather just to send that money to you to execute as part of this phase 2, that is acceptable. So in a notional example, this is going to be extreme, but just to highlight what could happen, you could request that up to $1 million of SBIR funding, and then you could have $10 million coming from a non-SBIR government funding source that sits on top of that and makes your total contract value for phase 2 $11 million in that example, right? So we do accept non-SBIR government funding as matching. And we still do observe any matching funding, whether government or private, as a strong indicator of your commercialization potential, which is something we care about during the evaluation and reviews.
Yep. Thank you, Steve, for clarifying that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We're still accepting funds in addition to the SBIR funds, but we're not saying that, hey, if you bring X amount of money, that we're going to provide 2X that or 1-to-1 match.
Spot on.
What capabilities are you specifically looking for and at what TRL level?
Yeah, so again, we discussed in terms of what capabilities. It is open, so you can either select that other option when you're filling out the RFI. The direct to phase 2 SBIR is open inherently, so any and all capabilities. The focus areas just are things that we have noticed there's extra interest in on the DoD side. And then TRL level, we talked about that, so there's no limitation there.
For COVID-19 matching funds, can those funds come from the Title III funding?
So that's a great question, and the answer to that would be yes. There's nothing that would preclude that. So, one thing is, as you're talking to that Air Force customer or whoever in the DoD is discussing Title III as an option, just have that real-time conversation. We've never done this before because this is obviously a new crisis, but in terms of accepting Title III funding as a source of matching, on the surface, I don't see any fundamental issue with that. Again, we'll have to get to the nuance of that on the case-by-case basis.
Some companies are receiving a request for additional information about COVID SBIR impacts from the AFWERX SBIR Center of Excellence team. What is happening to this information on the back end?
Yeah, good question. So I think I know the one to which you're referring. So this is folks who have either already applied or already been accepted to a SBIR solicitation. So it's not in reference to this upcoming 20.R that we've been discussing. But for those folks, one of the things that we're trying to do and communicate effectively to leadership is what are the impacts to small businesses across the country. And so this is one audience where, we need to be able to understand the needs of, to be able to advocate for funding and resources and things like that. So that doesn't affect 20.R. That is actually people already in our SBIR portfolio, and we're just trying to get a feel for what are the impacts for them.
Currently, submission information for non-government grants is not available in printed form. Is there any info about what we should submit?
I'm a little, maybe a little bit more clarification if you could provide that question again. We have our solicitation information is all in PDF form or in Word docs for some of those templates that we provide. And so, yeah, just to clarify maybe if I'm not hitting the question correctly.
Are you lightening up the rules for SBIR in terms of revenue company size? We aren't as small, but by no means are a big, and heard that with COVID, you are opening up the rules to allow for greater participation.
So with SBIR, the rules are not changing around that. But what I would encourage you to do is, one, obviously the RFI is very limited in rules because it's just information. It might lead to some kind of deal flow for you. And then two is for the open CSO that is specifically in response to COVID-19. So it is being built in a very broad and flexible way. So the SBIR rules still have to apply in this case. And then whatever is in that solicitation that we talked about for SBIR, those are the rules that are applied to this program.
Just to piggyback on Steve's response there, the SBIR size standard is 500 employees, and that is not changing.
Boom. Thanks.
If our company may be suited to develop technology to help combat COVID-19, is it recommended to submit an RFI to the COVID-19 response team, even if we are planning submitting a direct to phase 2 to the SBIR?
Yeah, absolutely.
For a university student team who do not...
Sorry, Kyle, that was my fault. Go on to the next one. I answered it.
You said that the effort is now DoD-wide. Are you also incorporating FEMA and BARDA into the CSO?
So that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. And I see that Jessica Steinhoff has dropped off. More information to come on that. What I would anticipate seeing is over the next couple of days, our website updating to reflect the other partners and stakeholders that are involved. So keep checking back to afwerx.af.mil/coronavirus.
We're actively working to partner with outside agencies on this process, which means sometimes we will coordinate with DHHS, FEMA, and I just discovered what BARDA was. So including BARDA as well, we're trying to actively partner. The solicitation right now is DoD focused, but as more information comes out and as the response coalesces for the government, we'll get information out to you all.
Thanks, Joey.
With the widened scope to DoD, does that mean that any DoD customer end user can be a candidate for signing an MOU for 20.R? Or is it the MOU still restricted to Air Force customers end users only? The 20.R solicitation is written specifically toward an Air Force customer end user.
Yep, so the solicitation remains Air Force customer required as we discussed.
Once the CSO opens, will the RFI close? Is applying to the RFI mandatory, helpful for applying to the CSO?
Yeah, so the answer is no. Once the open CSO is open, the RFI will not close. And I would say absolutely. You know, there is no harm to going through both because, again, the RFI is getting your solution in front of more eyes of people who are trying to find great solutions. And the open CSO will have a similar bent to it, but it might be other eyes you're getting on it too. So it's more shots on goal for you. And then one thing that could happen is if you apply to the RFI and then you start that dialogue between the operational planning team on the COVID-19 side and your company, they might end up saying, hey, maybe you should apply for the open CSO. So it could be something that leads to this vehicle that is the open CSO that's opening soon. So no issue with applying to both. I would encourage it.
I have noted that the level of subcontractor participation has been reduced from up to 50% in prior AFWERX SBIR D2P2 solicitations to up to 1/3 of award value in X20.R. Please confirm that this is indeed the case, as we would like maximum flexibility to bring the best team to the table to provide value to the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, so this is a good question. So I think maybe what you're doing is looking at the difference between phase 1 and direct to phase 2. And phase 2 in general. So we're talking SBIR right now in reference to the X20.R direct to phase 2 for everyone listening. For this one, the rules around that are for the proposing firm can have, must have at least 50% of the work being proposed for phase 1. Now for phase 2, it needs to be at least 2/3 of the work being proposed. And so that's where it comes into play. I think perhaps maybe what you were looking at was comparing phase 1 to the direct to phase 2 instructions. But anyway, those rules have not changed. It's just, that's just how it is. And John, am I off base on that too? Cause I know that's kind of an in the weeds one.
No, it sounded right.
Okay.
Other than the 7 generic categories, have any more specific requirements been established? Will more detailed requirements be forthcoming?
So for that one, these things are always evolving, and we're going to keep posting those real time to the AFWERX.mil/coronavirus website. I will say that when you go to the direct to phase 2 SBIR, those two websites that I showed you, BetaSam or the CIBR portal that has DSIP in the title, you'll notice that one of those attachments is the focus areas. There's a little bit more detail in that attachment. So there is some more detail now, but yes, as it evolves, we're going to continue to post that information.
With the OPTs behind the 7 areas of interest, will work be done on the DoD DISA side for accelerated approvals where compliance, speed bumps, and roadblocks normally inhibit moving at speed? For instance, getting Slack approved for IL-4 by DISA.
So I'll take this one.
Okay.
So in regards to compliance issues, we're actively working to continue to provide information on the rapid ATO process. Please check out information on the Iron Bank or DCARS, DCARS. You can Google that and find some more information about how to get cybersecurity compliance. There's an onboarding process for them there as well. In regards to potentially other compliance speed bumps or roadblocks, those are all to be determined as we work through the issue in real time.
Perfect.
Is the implication that civilian agencies will be handing off follow-up on a surge capacity to the DoD and the services? If we are already working to engage with FEMA, HHS, and NIH, should we anticipate switching to a DoD focus?
So on that one, I wouldn't stop any work that you're doing with other agencies. In fact, I think more cross-flow and communication is most effective here. So there is cross-functional communication that's occurring, especially at the leadership levels, but there's no way that we have 100% comms between all the relevant parties. So if ever you're working with another agency and you see a call out for similar work in the DoD, I would consider connecting those two POCs between the agencies, and maybe they can work together to get a better result. So it's really case by case.
Does the expansion that was announced today from the Air Force to all of the DoD include the D2P2 program?
No, so that's going to include the RFI, and it's going to also include the open CSO, but the SBIR, as I think we kind of keep foot stomping, is still, it's an Air Force topic, so it has some limitations tied to it.
If we apply to the J201-CS01 Phase 2 that we were already expecting and this new one, and the applications for the two are materially different, could we theoretically be awarded both? Would winning one have an impact, positive or negative, on our ability to win the other?
Nope. So again, you can win multiple. There's no limitation on the number of Phase 2s that you can have. Note that a single Phase 1 can't lead to two different Phase 2s, but that's not really what you're saying here. You're saying, can I win my Phase 2 off of J20.1, and can I also apply for X20.R? The answer is yes, and you could win both as well. So it won't prevent you from doing that.
Is this effort a cross collaboration with Army ASA?
So in terms of the DoD scope of the effort, this is actually breaking news that we're collaborating with DoD. So my take is probably there will be collaboration here, not to this point specifically that I've seen.
Is responding to the RFI required in order to be eligible when the solicitation is released?
No, good question though.
Do you have a list of units or organizations that we should be reaching out to for the MOUs?
We don't. One thing that we might, let me think about this for a second. So the Air Force acquisition structure is organized into what are called PEOs, or Program Executive Offices, each of which has certain functions that it's responsible for. We made some cheat sheets that talk about what each of those organizations does. So here, I'm going to take a do out. We may be able to post that to the AFWERX.af.mil site, but for now, no. There's no inclusive list of what every program organization is in the Air Force and who those contacts are.
After submission of the RFI, what is the average time do you anticipate being able to get back to the submitter?
Yeah, I mean, it's still too early to tell on that one. So some folks on the line likely have already received responses from the team. So there's nothing precluding someone from submitting a response, someone else coming through and finding that response, and then literally that same day getting contact from us to request more information. Again, this isn't directly resulting in contracts, at least not the RFI is not its own vehicle. So all it is communication. So you might get a response and it might just be a conversation back and forth, but we don't really have strong data on how long that's taking yet.
We filled out the RFI form, but our assigned RFI number shows REF exclamation point, which means we don't have one assigned. What do you recommend doing in order to resolve this and get an RFI number?
Yeah, great question. So we had a Y2K moment where when we breached 1,000, it kind of broke the system, then we fixed it. So you do have a number in our system. Just email COVID and actually just reply all, because I'll personally probably be on that email if you do that. And then I'll just go through and get you your actual number. Sorry about that.
Can the 100-second video requirement for CBR 20.R be waived? It's a tall order to find a video company in operation at this time.
Yeah, so what I would say to that is it's not going to be waived, but we also don't need very high production value, right? So what I do is just do your best to capture your value proposition in a visually appealing way, which a lot of people can just do from their own home, right? So that won't be waived, but we do recognize that it's a little bit harder for people. I would anticipate that the overall quality of those videos goes down, but it is a useful way for us to be able to understand your value proposition and to communicate it effectively.
If a proposal will span elements of 2 focus areas, e.g. mobile application for self-reporting and telehealth, how should that be presented in the proposal?
So I'm going to, for the RFI as an example, and I don't know if that's addressing this, probably not, but for the RFI, just do your best to pick the right one. If you want to describe in that one paragraph that we give you that there might be other relevance, that's how you choose to use it, that's fine too. And then for SBIR, yeah, there's no issue with saying that there are multiple of those focus areas that apply. Again, keep in mind the customer memorandum is still required in this case. So that's really the thing that is assigned to us, that there's an actual legitimized need for the solution and that you found a potential customer and transition partner. So even listing focus areas isn't necessarily affecting your selectability. What it is doing though, is just saying, hey, this is an area of increased interest. I still want you to send an email to COVID@AFWERX.AF.mil right now in the near term so that you can try to secure a memorandum before the close of direct to phase 2 solicitation on April 30th.
Is FedRAMP certification required for consideration of solutions?
So no, it's not required. Now, obviously that's a discussion that has, I would say, when contemplating a direct to phase 2, if you're talking about CBR, we will want to know that you have mitigated some of the risks to success of your solution, one of which is getting the appropriate certification. So as you find your customer who is interested in a solution, have that conversation with them and say, hey, here's what we've been certified in terms of a security perspective for our tech solution. And that may affect the timeline at which you can deliver during phase 2. Now, what I will say is it doesn't preclude you from being awarded a phase 2, though.
If we have previously been awarded a D2P2, are we able to edit a previously used 100-second video for submittal for a COVID focus area?
Yeah, you can edit it, but remember, if it would stand to reason that if the video is the same, then the solution you're proposing might be the same, in which case you'd be proposing essentially equivalent work to what you've already been awarded, which is fraud, right? So if you're editing it because the solution has become different in some material way, making it not essentially equivalent, that's a little bit of a gut call, but try to read through the definition of essentially equivalent work to see if you think that satisfies that or not. But yeah, if you're editing the video, that is fine as long as it's not essentially equivalent work that you're proposing.
Will being awarded this 20.R CBR prohibit an award of the next CBR phase 2, 20.2?
No, good question.
Hey, Steve, this is John. I've got to pop off, but if there's any questions related to the D2P2 SBIR solicitation that's out there, you can send them to me or whatnot after, and I will respond to them as much as I can.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for joining. And actually for everybody, we've got 5 minutes left on this call. So we'll get in some more questions here, maybe 2 or 3 more. This video will be posted to afwerx.af.mil/coronavirus.
And then for those folks that we know we have about 85 open questions. We're going to keep working through getting these responses and putting out an FAQ on the main AFWERX site for the coronavirus response. And then we're building an FAQ, we're segmenting these questions, and we'll be hosting these Q&As every Tuesday, Thursday at this time.
Awesome. Thanks, Joey.
On the RFI, if we have different solutions in different categories but the same company, should we submit 2 RFIs?
Yeah, I would say if the solutions are sufficiently different that they would warrant 2 submissions, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. If it's the same solution and you can just say, well, in one case it's person X using it, and the other case it's person Y, maybe just consider doing a single one and listing who the multiple customers might be. But yeah, no issue with having multiple submissions.
If a small business is currently working a phase 1 STTR that was recently awarded, they applied for a D2P2 at the same time, but it was canceled, are they eligible to resubmit that D2P2 for this cycle?
So my answer to that is you would need to submit to the direct to phase 2 solicitation that is open now. So you can't, quote unquote, resubmit what you've already done. In fact, the rules have been tweaked since then, so it wouldn't be advisable to do that anyway. So my answer is just go to, find the AF20.R-DCS01 solicitation, read those instructions, and then make a submission that's in accordance with those instructions. That said, having gone through STTR does not preclude you from doing the 20.R direct to phase 2 SBIR.
Are contract awards operating under normal timelines, or have processes been simplified?
So contract awards in general, it's kind of tough. So processes have been, authorities have been invoked that allow us to move more quickly and do things a little bit more flexibly. It really is going to depend though. So for the open CSO, absolutely, there's teams that are trying to pull out all the stops and ways to execute legally and correctly, but very quickly. And then for SBIR, there's still, the same process that we've used in the past of conducting an award sprint where we make all of the awards in one fell swoop. That is still occurring. So you'll see in the solicitation for SBIR, we say within 60 days is when you should expect that, or at least that's when we're targeting for direct to phase 2 awards. When it comes for 20.2 SBIR, which isn't on the street yet, but it's going to be in June and close in July, you'll see the same thing for the phase 1 and 2 there. Phase 1 tends to be a target of 30 days, and then the phase 2 is at 60 days.
For the technical volume, it requests phase 1 feasibility study results. Does published academic literature count as a demonstration of feasibility?
So there's specific verbiage in the solicitation that is some of the things that we ask for in reference to that. So I would just go through and look for those specific sentences that say, hey, these are the things that indicate the results of your feasibility study, and mention those, right? So, but in general, does an academic report or does some kind of industry report capture that? I think typically no, especially when some people, what they'll do is they'll attach a 50-page, very deep technical abstract as a supporting document. That does not fulfill the requirement of saying that you've done the contents of the feasibility study. Sweetie? Oh, I love that.
These are clams.
Sorry, next question. I love it, hon. Hey, Daddy's on this call real quick.
If we're applying to the D2P2 with a primary Army customer and an Air Force stakeholder as well, do we need to do any pre-coordination with the AFWERX Army POCs?
So I think I get the nature of the question. This is talking about D2P2. It is if you have an Army and an Air Force customer, does there need to be coordination between those customers? And the answer is yes. And the reason is mainly because if they are asking you to do work on an Air Force contract, that could pull from your ability to execute work for the Air Force itself, and then vice versa. And then even a step further is them talking to each other might yield a set of deliverables and requirements that are more effective for everybody. So the answer is yes. I do want to see that the Air Force customer has worked with the Army customer in this example. And that is our time. So again, we're going to post this video, put it on the AFWERX coronavirus website. Some of the high points for today are this is expanding to all of DoD. Expect to see some kind of rebranding and some more information and a larger group of customers and areas that you can impact the DoD coming down the pipe. We are still using the afworks.af.mil/coronavirus website, even through that transition. So keep checking back there. The next call is on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to keep the same cadence of Tuesday and Thursday each week. And then the 3 high-level things that you can engage with. The RFI, you can go do that right now. The link is on the AFWERX coronavirus website. The Open CSO is expected to release in the next couple of days. That will be on the AFWERX coronavirus website. And then the Direct to Phase 2 SBIR, which has a COVID-19 focus area that is posted live right now on the CIBR portal and on BetaSam. There's information on the AFWERX website as well. So thank you all so much for your time. Joey and Kyle, thanks so much for joining and helping out as well. And we will tune in and chat again next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.